Hello again. Television has seen such characters as Harry O and O'Hara, but neither of these had the popularity as the character played by our guest today. For 3 seasons on TV and in 5 movies, this actress has been known by her alter ego, Lieutenant Uhura of Star Trek. She is, of course, Nichelle Nichols. And now, here's your man of the half hour, Skippy Lowe.
Born in Robbins, Illinois.
Yes.
Grew up where?
Chicago.
Chicago.
Yes, I was born in Chicago,
Right.
in Robbins.
Yeah.
But Chicago is really my home.
Great town, Chicago.
Yes, yes, great town to be from too. Yeah.
But growing up in Chicago, you were a singer though. You were a nightclub performer at an early age.
Well, no, I was a dancer, singer, actress.
Sammy Davis discovered you, I understand, or did he not? Did
No,
he?
no.
What happened there?
I was in Chicago. I didn't meet Sammy until years later. It was Duke Ellington.
Duke Ellington.
The great
Okay.
Duke Ellington, when I was 15. And I was in a big show in Chicago. And he came to see me. And he asked that out of all the cast that he meet me. And so I did. I was just in 7th heaven. I ran to my dressing room and I told my mother. And I said, can I go? Can I go? And she said, of course. And so I went down to meet the great Duke, and I had just turned 15. And a year later, year and a half later, I was now about to be 17. I was 17.
Right.
He came back to Chicago and asked again to meet me. He told me he thought I had wonderful talent, and he came back and he met me again, and he said, would you like to create, choreograph, and perform a new ballet for a ballet for his new musical suite. And I was thrilled, and of course it meant I would tour with him. And while I was on tour with him, performing this wonderful, beautiful ballet,
Right.
his band singer, whom I used to stand in the wings and watch her, and then I would go home and try to be her, you know, when she wasn't looking in my dressing room. And so I learned all of the songs, which of course were Ellington's songs. Well, one day on the tour, Ellington calls me into his dressing room, and he says, sing for me. And I was a little thrown. Well, I knew he had seen me sing and dance and act in the show. And so I said, he said, you can sing, can't you? And I said, oh, of course, we've all got rhythm. So he said, wonderful, sing. So I said, well, there's no piano. We're in his dressing room.
Right.
And he said, that's all right. We all got rhythm, maybe. So I was so embarrassed, and so not to be outdone, I decided I'll fix him. I'll sing all of his songs that I'd been practicing, that the singer had been had sung.
A cappella.
A cappella.
Right, right.
We all got rhythm.
Right, right.
So I did, and Billy Strayhorn was sitting in the dressing room, and each time I would sing, and he'd say, sing something else, and watch me, you know. And Billy Strayhorn would kind of just look at him and say, D flat, F, G, E. And I'm wondering, why are they doing that? And he said, do you have that beautiful little gold dress that you had when we came, before we left Chicago, you wore to the party, to the farewell party? And I thought, oh, wonderful. We're going to have a party, and he's going to let me sing. I'm going to get to sing. I said, yes, and I've even got the shoes, too. I was so young.
15.
I was 17 now.
17 then, yeah.
And he said, good, because you will go on tonight. The band singer had gotten sick and had to leave the tour. And I finished the tour, not only as a dancer, but as a singer with the great Duke Ellington.
Duke Ellington.
At
Working
17
with this
years
man.
old. Yes.
17?
Yes.
Duke Ellington. Working with this man. Must have been great.
Was
Learned
wonderful.
a lot, did you?
Learned.
What did you learn
learned
from him?
that, I learned always to be my best and demand the best of me.
Right.
I learned that when you start at the top, you have great expectations, not only of yourself, but of your fellow musicians and people. So I learned a great deal about quality of selection of material, I learned a great deal about timing and rhythm and feeling. And I learned that I bowled him over to the point that he could hardly hold back the laughter because I was emulating this band singer trying to be so sexy. And you know, she was like 28 or 9, an old lady.
Right.
And here I was 17 trying to be this sex image. So one day he came to me and he said, "You're doing a very good imitation of my band singer." He said, "Now tonight, I'd like you to be just you."
Just you.
And first I was startled. And that night I thought, okay, I'll stop trying to be her and I'll just be me. And as I came off the stage, I looked back over him. He went, and he came to me and he said, "Way to go."
Oh, great.
He said, "Always know when you're being you, and then when you're being somebody else, it'll work perfectly for you."
But you're doing a show right now called Reflections. Come on,
Yes.
Nichelle. Huh?
Yes, I guess all
what
of
you're
that
doing
good,
that came
good
out-
advice came tumbling back for me.
Reflections. Tell me about this wonderful show, a one-woman show you're doing.
Yes, I guess I've always been inspired by wonderful women entertainers, and I've always looked to the best.
Right.
In if it was singing, if it was dancing, whether it be comedy or whatever, I thought the people that you should study, that should be your beacons, should just be the best.
Right.
And I've always loved all kinds of music, and these women have been my idols since I was a little girl. Some I didn't know because they were born and died before I was born.
But you're not
But
personating.
others I
Yeah.
grew up in watching them become legends.
Right.
And so these are the legendary women entertainers that a young girl aspires to be.
Right.
And uses, I guess you would say, as a beacon of excellence.
Right.
And so, no, I don't
You
imitate
don't imitate them. That's what I mean.
I use my acting ability to try to bring out the essence of those ladies, of what I felt was their strength and their beauty, and sometimes their vulnerability, but at all times they're that wonderful thing that makes them uniquely them.
Some of the ladies.
Well, of course, what young girl wouldn't aspire to the beauty and elegance of a Lena Horne?
Oh, great.
And I always loved. So there's Lena Horne. There's Ethel Waters. There was a wonderful woman in the 20s, I guess, who died before I ever got to see her, named Florence Mills. She was the Ziegfeld, the first black Ziegfeld Follies superstar on Broadway.
Right.
And she died very young in her life. But I was doing a calypso show in Chicago, and a young man came who was in the show, who happened to be her nephew, used to watch me backstage, and he said, "You remind me of my aunt." And then he told me his aunt was Florence Mills, and he told me so much about her. And then I read up on her, and he would watch me dance, he would watch me sing, he would watch me do comedy, you know, and play, and he watched me doing my dramatic songs.
Right.
So he said, "You remind me so much of my auntie." And so I do, I try to honor her in the show. And since I'd never seen her, all the other women I've seen,
Was it difficult?
I let her introduce herself.
Oh, interesting.
Yes, I let her become.
Yeah.
And so she says, "Hi, you don't know me, but I used to be a big star on Broadway. I was right up there with Josephine Baker, you know." And she said, and she said, "My name is Florence Mills," and then she takes you through what she used to do,
How wonderful.
and then takes you through a lot of lovely stuff, you know.
But Josephine Baker, you do, and
I do Josephine Baker because they came along about the same time.
Right.
But Joe Baker, I saw when I guess it was about 15 years old. My mother and father used
In
to
Chicago?
take me to see I saw everybody in Chicago. Sarah Vaughan. And I lived just down the street from Mahalia Jackson, and I used to go on Wednesday nights, and before Mahalia was Mahalia, and I used to go to this little Baptist church on Michigan Avenue, where she used to come on Wednesday nights once a month, and everyone would come, and she would come give concerts to help the church raise money.
How wonderful.
And I'll never forget those.
You grew up in a great area and a great childhood. You must have had a great childhood.
I saw all the greats, all the greats.
Chicago's got great singers. A lot of great singers come from Chicago.
Magnificent talents, magnificent talents. And so you knew you couldn't help but be nurtured by all of this cultural depth and strength of these ladies. The beautiful, haunting Billie Holiday.
Oh, I loved her.
And I get to kind of climb into that smoldering soul of hers for a moment. I was
How do you get into your characters? I mean, just how do you, each one, how do you get it?
I approach them as an actress, not as a singer.
As an actress?
Yes. I approach them from where, for instance, a Billie Holiday is coming from. That depth, from that strength and beauty that Lena Horne has, from the humor. Where does Pearl Bailey go to find her humor, darling? You know, because some of it is very biting, but it's always so funny.
Yes.
So I do Pearl Bailey. Where does Uneartha Kitt come from? That depth that she's stalking you.
Has any of these stars seen you do these characters?
The only one who knows about it is Eartha Kitt, because we've been friends for a long time. So last summer when she was summer when she was here at the Cinegirl, I went back to see her, and she made me come upstairs and afterwards, and we sat around and chatted, and of course then she said, "All right, everyone, be quiet, Nichelle," and she always does this. "All right, Nichelle, what are you doing?"
I love it.
She loves to call me Miss Star Trek.
Yeah.
"All right, Nichelle, Miss Star Trek, what are you doing now? I have to keep up with you." And so for the first time, she loves me to tease her, you know, because, and I said, "Well, as a matter of fact, Eartha, I'm doing you." So she screams when I imitate her. And so she said, "What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you do?" And so I told her about my one-woman show. And she says, "Oh, well, all right." She says, "Another one bites the dust," or something like that. She says, "I know you want to do monotonous or Sassy Bone, or what are you doing, Santa Baby? All right, you can do it." And I didn't have the heart to tell her I was doing original material, piece of material. Not, and in my show, I don't do anyone's material.
Who writes the material in your show?
There's Jim Meehan, my partner, and he writes beautiful music. And I really challenged him on this one, though, because it was, some of his music I was doing in the original version that we had done of this show, and I really challenged him to write for Lena Horne, write for Ethel Waters, write for Sarah Vaughan, write for Pearl Bailey, for Billie Holiday, for Leontine Price. That was a big challenge for him, you know, and to write for Pearl Bailey and Eartha Kitt, you know, and I think he kind of wanted to pull his hair out from me, because he would write something and it would work, and he'd think he had me off his back, you know. But I was determined that the entire show was going to be all original material, but written as though it were written for those particular ladies, each one.
You were at the Westwood Playhouse?
I was at the Westwood Playhouse.
And now you're taking it to Broadway, I understand.
Yes, we are. We're going to... Well, what do I want to do, Skip?
What would you like to do with it?
Tour the country.
First.
With the show.
That's what they do now before they go to Broadway.
I think it makes so much more sense.
They're doing it. Bobby Morse did it in small little colleges before he went to Broadway. They're all doing it.
It will be doing colleges and theaters across the country. And I'm very excited.
It's called
about it.
Reflections?
It's called Reflections. Yes.
Wonderful title.
And it's my reflections through my mirror, because my mirror I used to use to identify these women for myself
Yes.
as I was becoming them. I'd go to see how I was doing. And the better I got at finding their soul,
Yes.
I could see them reflecting back at me through the mirror.
I see
and so
one.
there's a beautiful
I see one I like, Josephine
Josephine Baker.
God, look at that. That's
this lady.
Nichelle, you're beautiful.
Thank
look
you.
how gorgeous you are. This is another one.
That's Jo Baker.
Jo Baker.
Yeah.
I worked with her in Paris.
Oh, what an
Germany bases.
exquisite woman.
Yes, great.
And what a performer. What a show-stopping
I love
performer.
this. This is she noted for.
Yes, yes,
That
her
long-
elaborate gowns. And not, again,
Beautiful.
I take Jo Baker and allow her to be herself,
Right.
and to give you a little history of herself,
Oh, how great.
of the pain that she went through,
Right.
from being in having two countries,
Yes.
these two loves. Her
course.
song "J'ai deux amours,"
Of course.
and
She did love this country.
She loved this country,
But
and
the
it
country
pained
wasn't
her
fair
deeply.
to her.
It
This
pained
country
her very,
wasn't-
very deeply
Yeah.
that she was never the superstar here,
Yeah.
as beloved as she was in France. The Parisians worshipped her.
They're the greatest. When they love you, they'll love you to the day they die. They
She
don't
was
give up their...
La Baker.
Yeah.
She was Josephine.
Yes, yes.
And I attempt to bring that to the stage, her elaborate productions and her fantastic wardrobe.
You know something? Why don't you take this to Paris? This
I'd
would be
love to take it to
exquisite.
Paris. Yes,
Paris.
She's in my first act, and I give the first.
I meant the
act.
whole show. The
Yes,
whole
I would
show.
like. I would like to take
That-
it to Paris.
I
I think they would love
it.
Yes, and although Jim wrote a wonderful song for her called La Différence.
Oui.
La Différence c'est toi. Within it, we take a couple of bars of her J'ai deux amours.
Oui. Because the French know
Yes.
Nichelle as the Star Trek.
Yes,
Five
and it's very,
films.
very popular. Five major motion pictures
with Star Trek.
Of Star Trek.
Oh, tell me about that Star Trek. How did you get that role?
Oh boy, I was in Paris.
You were?
I was in Paris in 1965.
Right.
And I got
I was there
a
too.
telegram.
65.
Really?
Good God.
I got
Ruba
a telegram.
Blakey. I worked for Ruba
Oh
Blakey,
my goodness!
the
yes.
agent there.
Yes.
And
I was in England.
Right.
At the Pigalle, singing at the Pigalle, and I was invited to Paris.
Right.
And I had just arrived when a telegram followed me from London. It was from my agent. It said, "Come home immediately. They're doing Star Trek."
Right.
Exclamation point! Exclamation point! Exclamation point! I didn't know what a Star Trek was.
Of course.
Although I had worked for Gene Roddenberry, who was the creator of Star Trek,
Right.
3 years before, and he had said in one of his
What show was that?
The Lieutenant,
Lieutenant.
Gary Lockwood.
Yes.
Well, I did my very first guest star role in television in The Lieutenant, and Gene Roddenberry was so pleased with me. He said to me, "I've got something in mind, and if it comes about, which I'm sure it will, there may be something interesting in it for you." Well, I thought it was imminent. So for a year, I sat around waiting at the telephone, waiting for it to ring, and I thought, nothing's going to happen for me, really, here in Hollywood. So off I went to sing and act and perform in Europe. And I was beginning to build quite a following there. So I had been gone for maybe 3 months. I wasn't about to come back. I wasn't ready to come back to the States. So I get this telegram, and of course I immediately filed it in the round file.
Right.
And I get a second telegram, and I filed it, and I got a follow-up phone call from Harry Lipton, who was burned my ears. Well, those expletives will have to be deleted here. And He said, "You get yourself back here." And I said, "Harry, I'm building something here. I'm
Right.
not coming." He still thought I knew what it was. He still didn't say Gene Roddenberry.
Right.
So he said, "I'll make you a deal, and I'll make you an offer you can't refuse." He says, "I'm sending you a first-class round-trip ticket. Air France, you be on it. If you don't come back here and get this part, the ticket's on me. And if you get it, I want my cotton-picking money back." So I thought, that's terrific. That's what can it take? A week?
Right.
I'll be back. No, gang,
Right.
don't worry about me. See you shortly to my Parisian friends, mon amis. And of course, I came back
came
here.
back?
I didn't even know it was a series.
Right.
I thought it was some role on episodic television, fine, or at best a movie. I walked into the interview, still not knowing it was Gene Roddenberry, and said, "Why, Mr. Roddenberry, hi, what are you doing here?"
That's
And I
it
thought,
dawned on you.
the light,
Yeah.
doesn't take me long.
Right.
So he said, "Well, I've got a little something to do with this." And they had already done 2 pilots,
Right.
of which I had not been in. And they were ready to go into production when Gene Roddenberry said to the network, "I think I'm going to change one of the command crew on the bridge." And they said, "Fine, recast." They said, "Fine, it's up to you." He said, "Yeah, I want to put a little more color on the bridge." They had no idea he meant literally. So that's how I came in and read for it with several other top actresses.
And that's the whole new career for you.
It was a whole new career. Yeah, yeah.
Boy, it must have been
yeah.
exciting.
And the rest is
History.
out of this world.
Wherever you go, they called your name.
All over the world.
All over
Yes.
the world.
Uhura.
Uhura.
Uhura. Uhura.
What, they called you?
They
Airports
call-
everywhere?
Airports, they stop me. They either call me Uhura, Lieutenant Uhura, or Miss Star Trek.
What's happening? Is it going to make another one? Is it going to be a 6th one? 6 motion picture?
I think they're talking. They've talked about whether it will be, whether it won't be. They're discussing now, and I understand that they have asked Gene Roddenberry to write a treatment for a Star Trek 6. I hope that it'll be if we do it, it'll be the final one for me, because I'm really excited about resuming my career, my singing career. I mean, on a really serious, continuous basis.
Did you have a good time working on that for all those
Oh yeah,
years?
oh yeah. I had a.
Would you do it? Would you do it the same way though? If looking back, would you do it the same way?
I'm not sure. During the run of the show, I think I would have done things differently after the show closed. I would have gone immediately back to theater.
Because it stopped your singing career.
It stopped my singing career. Right, I let it.
Yes.
Nothing
yes,
stops
yes,
you.
Yes, of course.
Except what you allow.
Of course.
So I let things. I let myself fall into possibly that Hollywood trap of being of being now a Hollywood star, and one just doesn't do certain things, I suppose. It was also in 1969.
Right.
It also just coincided with the black exploitation films.
Right.
And I did one, Truck Turner, and I thought I would. I played a hard, cold madam.
Right.
And I put on 25 pounds to get them to let me have that part instead of the sexy young girlfriend, who was the other co-starring role, the starring role. And so they said, "But it's not a starring role." I said, "Yes, it is. You're the producer. All you have to do is say so."
I see.
And they said, "Right, you're right." So they did. And I thought that would break the mold from Uhura, that role. But then I turned down more roles than I did because of the black exploitation films that were out. I didn't like what I was seeing.
Right.
After that, I didn't like all black people being pimps and all black women being
Exactly,
whores, and
yes.
and the racial tension that it seemed to be saying. It wasn't to me presenting the true picture
Yes.
and it was not for me in most instances uplifting enough, and we were not seeing a complete cross section of my race and of women, and so I didn't want to be party to it. And that really was almost all that was being seen in the
Yes.
early 70s.
But today, it's different.
Yes,
It's
indeed.
It's completely different.
Yes.
Morgan, look at Morgan.
Yeah.
Look at Washington.
Yes.
He
And
won.
that's exciting too.
To be,
And it's
I mean,
exciting, you know, because
Are you satisfied what's happening in America today among the racial people and today? What's happening? I mean, let's
I'm
face
not
it.
sure that I'm satisfied. I'm not sure that that I think a tremendous change has taken place, and I'm excited about that. But I think we have to continue to be wary and on guard.
Yes.
And we have to have matter of forethought
Right.
about how we present ourselves
Yes.
and how we are growing.
Right. You help a lot of people in this country, though. You donate your time to a lot of causes. Tell me about that, Nichelle. You really, I mean, not just all these celebrities. They help. You're with the homeless. You help the homeless.
I've been working very diligently with fighting this war on the homeless. I've been working for passage of Proposition 107 to
Right.
assist in eradicating homelessness. I think homelessness is a crime
It is a crime. Yes.
against humanity, and for this society to accept it as a part of our lives is ridiculous.
Yes, of course.
I'm one of the founders of Kwanzaa Foundation, which is an organization of black actresses
Right.
who came together in '73 to give something back to the community from whence we've come,
Yes.
meaning wherever that community is
Yes, yes.
in the nation, to let people know that we've not forgotten just because we've attained celebrity,
Yes.
that we know from whence we spawn or
Yes.
spawned, and to give back into that community.
You seem like a very spiritual lady.
My
Are you
mother
spiritual?
and father were very, very strong,
Really?
very beautiful. I have a beautiful mother who's 84 years old,
Oh, how lovely.
Nichols. And yes, I think I get a lot of my father's deceased. He was a wonderful man.
So family's very important.
Very. Samuel Nichols was a wonderful, wonderful man, and he told me from the time I was a very, very, very young girl that I could do and be anything I wanted to be if I was willing to give my all, hold my sights high, and dedicate myself
Right.
to what I wanted to do. And they both always instilled in me